Welcome everybody to part 2 of a series I am doing on the Major Arcana of Tarot as it relates to the collective evolution in consciousness on the planet here and now in 2020, and looking in particular at the archetype of the Tower, the 16th Major Arcana, as it relates to COVID-19 in particular, and as it relates to our collective consciousness in ascension. It's very interesting to note that the 16th Major Arcana is an initiation into a higher level of consciousness on the planet that has just been showing up when we examine it in relation to numerology, in relation to particular birth dates of people currently alive here and now on the planet, that this initiation began around 2010, particularly for people born in late October. And many other souls have followed in this spiral of ascension. It just so happens that Scorpios are often considered old souls. I'm not a Scorpio, by the way, but so I'm not tooting my own horn. But Scorpio people born the end of October into early November are considered old souls. Well, I don't go by that terminology of old souls because that implies a hierarchy, which I am stoutly not in favor of. Instead, I prefer to think of these souls as pioneering souls, braving new territory. And as we know, Scorpios by nature are not afraid of the dark energies that they must travel through. And we know that previous to this 16th Major Arcana, this initiation into a Tower experience, we had the Devil card, the 15th Major Arcana, of which I spoke in part 1 about facing your fears, which is also a collective phenomena. The last time Devil energy was present on the planet was in World War II, largely personified by Hitler. Many decades later, the Devil resurfaced in and around 2000, and is continuing to show its presence in external affairs as collective fears are projected outwards. And now here we are with the Tower phenomena. Of course, we encountered it in 2001 with the literal 9/11 crashing down of the Trump Towers, allegedly due to terrorism, and therefore fears around terrorism arose around the planet and in the behaviors of nations to protect, quote unquote, people. But now here we are with this COVID-19, which is a much more insidious, invisible, silent enemy, so to speak, enemy, quote unquote. We might visit many possible interpretations of COVID-19, but I will set that aside for now and just explore with you the meaning of the Tower in Tarot. So looking at the classic image of Tarot for Tower from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, we see this image that very much looks like 9/11, where everyone's falling asunder from the blasted tower. And we notice even a crown at the top, which symbolizes the breakdown of authority, concurrently with the breakdown of old structures, or structures we had built up over time that we may have perceived as secure, stable, supportive structures, but in fact, even those can fall with the unexpected interference. So the Tower is classically part of the transpersonal Major Arcana that appear, where we're working with energies outside of the individual self-development and working with collective energies. And at this point in the Major Arcana journey, as we've journeyed from a 0 and we're going towards a 21, pretty far along in the journey is the Tower. And at this point in the evolution, having traversed through your fears of the devil energy, which represented unconscious patterns and structures and habits, now the Tower, if we didn't do our homework and face our fears and confront our own shadows and own that piece of ourselves that is vulnerable and needs to be accepted, then the universe essentially throws us off our feet. So certainly on the collective level, we could witness that a large percentage of the population out there had not accepted their own shadow and continued to project it out and elsewhere, away from their own selves, and blame it on the devil out there, whoever that would be, an us versus them mentality. But now we are thrown off our feet, literally, with the Tower experience. So it's an event seemingly beyond our control. An event orchestrated by the universe itself, perhaps the earth itself. It depends on your belief systems. We won't critique or judge any belief system here, nor will we condone a particular one, but more exploring the general symbolic meanings here. So we are looking at this Tower symbolically as the breakdown of whatever structures no longer serve us externally. So that could be institutions, corporations, constructs of government, economy, health, and so on. So it's a total breakdown, a breakdown into unknown territory, a breakdown into chaos. So on a very basic level, we can see the Tower as equating to chaos as an archetype. And chaos is a very significant concept that is a necessary prerequisite, to our evolution. So we must transcend through chaos. And if we look at our great universe, the cosmos, we can see that these great cataclysmic events happen in outer space. The exploding of a sun, for example, which is the exploding of potent, powerful energies that have sustained us for a good long time. But it is the law of the universe that all things must transform and cease. And the interesting point about a sun exploding is when it does so, I was delighted to find out that it creates a million zillion tiny gemstones sparkling out there in space. And that's where the little gemstones came from originally. So it's quite magical, really. And those little gemstones come into the gravitational pulls of other celestial bodies, because everything is in interconnection, and with time reformulate into new celestial bodies, new planetary forms or meteors, asteroids, any number of celestial activity recreates them into something greater. So we could very much look at the Tower experience like that, that as we go into this blasted state of being, blowing up, breaking down, dismantling everything that we depended on, everything that we had thought was secure, and then have come to the realization that we stand at ground zero. And we must stand in our pure, naked essence, stripped down of all artifice, of all preconceived ideas of what it means to be supported and secure on this planet. and essentially coming to terms with our own naked essential truth, especially as we all sit here in lockdown, in isolation, and we are forced to look inward. Well, that's ultimately the purpose of the tower. The universe says, hey, if you're not going to face up to your fears, face up to your own vulnerabilities, own your own shadow, then I will force it, says nature. I will throw you off your feet. I will blow everything to bits around you so that you have to lay face down on the ground, ground zero, and face the raw truths. This is a soul truth mission, after all. And as we face this emptiness, this chaos, we have to come to terms with what's inside ourselves. And essentially, we have to break down our own egos in the greater collective picture here and look out into the world and say, how can we move forward? We're not going to make it in this individualistic spirit of everything for me. We have to face up to what is the collective good, the highest good for all, and look at how can we move forward together at this point in time. And with the tower, we have two choices when we're there at ground zero in the bare truth of everything. We can either attempt to rebuild the structures that we are familiar with, the ones that will normalize our lives once again, rebuild hopefully in a more sustainable manner, that's sustainable not just for ourselves, but for all life, for the environment, because we know there's greater matters at hand on the planet in respect to the well-being of and the sustainability of resources of our planetary entities, which include the trees and the animals and the bees and so on. But we also have another choice. We can choose instead to walk away from this mess of broken structures and reinvent ourselves in new unknown territory, co-create something entirely new and beyond our normal expectations, something more amazing, more beautiful than ever. So let's consider this choice to rebuild or to walk away and reinvent something new. Let me show you another example from the tarot. This one's from the Transformational Tarot. This is another more spiritual version of the tower, and it shows Kali, the goddess of destruction, the Indian goddess, that is. And this understanding of spiritual evolution in Indian terms is that we must have a destroyer to break down all that's not needed, all the old belief systems, all the old rigid patterns, all the old ways of being that no longer serve the greater good of humanity must break down and dissolve into nothingness, into chaos. And it is only then through this breakdown that we can have a rebirth into something greater. And you'll take notice in this image, as much as she looks fierce, organic, and explosive, she looks ready to birth pure light energy out of her womb. So it's ultimately, as much as it's about the breakdown and letting go of ego, of artifice, of rigid structures, it's about opening up to new and beautiful ways of being that will keep us resilient and full of life. And at this point, it's interesting to look at the tarot in terms of sequence. So when we want to understand the major arcana, it's not to look at a card in isolation, but to understand why one card leads on to another. So I spoke about earlier how the devil evolves into the tower experience. So just when things looked really dark and difficult, it gets worse with the tower, but only worse if we're not willing to face up to our fears and our negative programming and structures in our lives. Then we are forced off our feet, forced to ground zero in a chaotic manner as it appears on the planet, because people weren't willing to face the facts that these corporate, greedy ways of living our lives are not serving the greater good, are not serving the health and well-being of our planet and of all humanity. So nature steps in. Therefore, the tower shows us that if you do not abide by the laws of the universe will force the breakdown as a necessary part of evolution and of healthy evolution. So hence the tower comes forth and forces this breakdown, forces this pause, forces this standing in our naked truth. So we have to make wise choices from here. And of course, because of the myriad views on the planet, belief systems on the planet, we may not all choose the same. Some of us will choose to reinvent ourselves, to attempt to co-create something innovative and amazing for a new way of living our lives on this planet with each other. And others may choose to say, no, I'm more comfortable with the familiar structures that I know. And it will be easier just to rebuild what is more sustainably, hopefully. So we may go into two different camps, but hopefully we can still coexist and work together for a better future for all. And what we need to note is what follows the tower as well in the Major Arcana of Tarot is the 17th Major Arcana. And that is the star, which I will show you here. So the star is the Aquarian card that shows us our ability to ascend to a higher level, to spiral up in the ascension. So what we notice with the numerology is this 17 may not come for another 10 years, really. So we may need the next 10 years to work on our evolution into this higher state of consciousness, which is, by Aquarian terms, more humanitarian, more in favor of equality on the planet in respect to all sentient beings, more compassionate in an objective way, so that we don't let our emotional energies interfere with our greater goals as a collective, that we hold compassion for all beings, but it's not personal. It's in devotion, in dedication to the highest good of all. Now, the old souls, quote unquote, or what I call the pioneering souls, will be coming into this sooner and soon. So there'll be a group on the planet that are being initiated into the star consciousness. And a lot of us who have a spiritual awareness are already clued into this. But the important point with tarot as a mirror of collective psyche is that it's a raising of consciousness can evolve, but it's not just that consciousness. We can have all the consciousness in the world, and really it doesn't matter if we cannot apply it in real, practical, physical, down-to-earth ways, as long as we are here in these bodies on this planet. So the application of that will take another 10 years, but the consciousness is already popping up in many around the planet about how can we progress as a collective, because it does no good for some egos to progress, presumably above and beyond and ahead of everyone else, because we are all in this together. We're all collectively interwoven. And unless all of us are moving and evolving and ascending together, none of us are ascending. That's an illusion. So the tower is meant to blow up the illusions as well. And again, bring us into raw, naked truth, that we must align and stand in our soul truth and discover what is the creative spark or essence within us, that unique essence in all the universe. And yet it's an essence that's no better than anyone else's essence and must be harmonized in concert with all the essential in each and every person. And as each of us shines our own light and shares that out in the world, we collectively expand the light energies and bring them into balance with the dark energies. It's not to eradicate darkness, because let's remember that everything is part of the whole, and the whole is holy. So it's merely to say, let's bring everything into balance and harmony once again, to hold both the shadow and the light. And also in respect to light energies, it's interesting in the numerology, as it dovetails with the tarot, to look at this spiral of numbers that we see currently on the planet that goes in a spiral, or like the DNA pattern. So it's an energetic DNA. And it shows us that currently on the planet, we are being initiated into the tower, the 16th Major Arcana. But immediately after each individual receives that initiation, we master the next year the Strength card in Tarot, which is the 8th Major Arcana, half of the 16, which is strength. And we see this beautiful image of a woman taming a lion with the sign of infinity like a halo over her head, which shows an infinite connection with the life force of the universe, and also taming the life force on the earthy level in the form of a lion, taming this fiery earth energy, which we can see also symbolized by the mountain in the backdrop and the flowers around her solar plexus, her energy center that is symbolized by the 8, and also a personification of Leo energy. And we can note that Leo rules the heart, rules the belly, these very instinctual parts of us where the life force is strong in our bodies. And Leo often has to do with ego. However, it is also an ego that can melt in the heart and be the energy of pure love and care and creativity. So we each have an opportunity right now on the planet to master our own creative center at the belly and in the heart, and to really honor the energy intelligence of the heart. And there's a lot of beautiful research out there right now on how the heart is more intelligent than the brain energetically. and it picks up on signals in a 2-meter radius around the body, much farther radius than the brain can with its sensory perception. And this intelligence informs us of important truths of what's happening in our environment, what's happening with other people that we encounter. And that information registers in the heart. The heart reports it to the brain with a signal, and then the brain carries on to critique, judge, organize, label, and put that information in its proper compartments in the brain. So we have to remember the brain is like a computer processing the information, but the heart is the true receptor of that energetic data that comes to us. And so we can master our connection with this intelligent organ of life and really give it more respect and more attention. And then this will guide us through the chaos. It's really a matter of listening to the heart and paying attention to this energetic intelligence. And then energetically, as we free up this energy from within, we encounter a lot of creative power. And with this creative power, we can co-create anything we desire in the reality that will emerge after this crisis, this tower experience, currently named as COVID-19 on our Earth planet. So this is a beautiful time for ascension. And certainly as you look around on Facebook and all the other social medias, we can recognize that there's a lot of creativity burgeoning up, and people are singing and dancing and creating art and music and sharing their creative tips on this, that, and the other for our well-being and health. And there's a renaissance of beautiful creative expression going on because everybody has the time and space. Well, at least if they're not on the front line, giving all their energies to the care of us humans with the food services and so on. So hands down to those people. But those of us who have the luxury of just staying at home and having a lot of peaceful space and time in our cocoons, so there's a lot of creativity germinating, and it's beautiful to witness. So that is the energy of strength, which is also an energy of resilience. So as each of us traverses through the tower experience, it's a test, if you like, of our resiliency. How empowered can we be? How connected with our own life force, our own will to live this human experience? How willing are we to carpe diem and make the most of it? And this is the chance we have right now to master this creative power inside ourselves. Now, it's also important to note, if that power is blocked or locked inside of you, the reaction then is anger, frustration, and stress, and violence or aggression even. And of course, we see plenty of that on the planet, where the solar plexus, where the creative power has been blocked, perhaps because too much over-reliance on outside authorities to create for us this reality, and less self-reliance on our own creative powers. So even if you're not a creative artist, music, dancer, or so on, it doesn't matter. There's all sorts of creativity. Could be technical creativity, medical creativity, or any sort, really. So we don't want to be narrow in our labeling of what creativity is. It's just the human nature to create. And if we allow ourselves to get in touch with that inner creativity, everything is possible. limitless, infinite possibilities are available to us as that sign of infinity over the crown of the woman taming the lion. And of course, taming that aggressive energy, which is represented by the lion, that could potentially overtake us, devour us, rip us apart. We can tame that energy by aligning with your infinite life force and creativity and allowing it to be expressed and shared with others. And in that way, the beast is tamed, and the beast within, that aggressive, vicious part of us, that when we don't get acknowledgement and recognition for our unique essence, for our unique talents and gifts, often we feel vicious, competitive. We want to tear up other people or the rest of the world in favor of ourselves because we haven't been duly acknowledged for our own unique creativity. So when you acknowledge your own unique creativity, you need not be competitive or rip other people down, because everybody has a unique mix or combination of creative energies. So even if I do my unique combination of skills, healing and intuitive work and meditation and so on, and there's other people doing those things, I don't need to compete because I have my own unique blend. And everybody has their own unique blend of whatever it is that inspires their creative impulse. So we need not worry. And we can be more at peace and tame that inner aggression within us. So this is the encouragement for all of you. And please go forth and share your creative gifts, and the world will celebrate your offerings. So blessed be everyone, and go on and shine your light out there. And the Transformational Tarot's image of that is restoring the cosmic order, which shows this vibrancy being expressed from this being pictured. And as we each share more of our light, our love, our creative energies out there in the world, we will restore cosmic order once again and make it through the chaos. So be it. All the love and hope invested in each of you.